This crazy offseason of attrition just continues to swirl around and around, with players and coaches deciding to leave or transfer, players coming in, players deciding to stay. It's been a little bit crazy, and it just got a little bit more interesting with a quarterback deciding to come over within the SEC to now play for Auburn. We're going to talk about in this video who that is and what chances they stand at being the starting quarterback for Auburn in 2022. Welcome to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks. Our content here and on our podcast network may tend to be Auburn sports heavy, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you never miss any content, and we thank members of our booster club like David Wells, who help produce videos like this. Late in this week, news broke about Zach Calzada, the former Texas A&M quarterback, deciding to transfer to Auburn University to compete for the starting job here at quarterback. It was interesting news. He's been in the transfer portal for quite some time, and there were other names that potentially Auburn was considering or others were considering them. But this is where we landed. Zach Calzada has decided to switch over not only just to an SEC team, but an SEC West team and a rival team at that to Auburn, which will make for an interesting matchup later on in the 2022 season. It also adds an interesting angle to the quarterback race that was already there between TJ, Dematrius Davis, and even Holden, the new rookie coming in. If you've been part of the channel for a while, you'll remember a video that we did at the end of last summer talking about the race between TJ, Bo, and Dematrius Davis at the time, and how we thought the percentage chance of each of those starting and their pros and cons would have broken down. We're going to do the same thing here, and I would stress this as well with a couple caveats. We're going to probably have to do this once, maybe even twice more as time goes on. I'm thinking maybe later on after A-Day and once more after the summer ends, because I think those are two good time periods to reevaluate the opportunities each of these quarterbacks have. And let's just go ahead and be honest right here. The way things are changing with everything in the offseason so far, some of these guys, by the time you're listening to this, may not even be here at this point, may have decided to go somewhere else. At this point, there could be someone else added to the mix. I don't know. It's just been crazy this offseason. All we can do for this video and at this moment in time with the football program is analyze who has the best opportunity of starting at this very moment. So the order that I give you all of these in is not necessarily the order of opportunities or percentage chance that I think they're going to start. I'm just basically going in order of seniority and the current depth chart, who's been here the longest. And then what I'm going to do for each of those is give you their best pro to make their case for being the starting quarterback, but also the con that I think could keep them from being the starting QB. I'll also give you a percentage chance that I think they have of winning the starting job after each of those analyses. So let's start with TJ Finley. He is the incumbent starter, with Bo Nix deciding not to return to the Auburn Tigers. His biggest pro is flat out his just Auburn experience. While he hasn't been here the longest, that would be Dematrius Davis, he has had the most experience playing for them, with 3 games starting and another game, the Georgia State game, where he basically won it with him coming in to replace Bo Nix. You can't discredit that from him and know that he has a great familiarity and understanding between him and the coaches on what he's good at, the things that he needs to work on, and what he does that can most make this football team successful. That's going to give him a huge leg up in this race if he chooses to stay. Remember, things can always change. We'll see how this thing shakes out during the rest of the offseason. His biggest con, though, for me is his mobility. He is a huge behemoth of a man at 6'7". I've stood next to him myself and can't just believe how big he is. Bigger than Cam Newton, which is crazy to think about. But as of this moment, he hasn't shown the mobility that I think you need in this offense and with the team's current setup, especially with the offensive line structure that you're going to need to get away from some issues that are going to happen for you as the quarterback for the Auburn Tigers currently. So I think that is still going to be a detriment towards him, but I think that it's something depending on the scheme and the players that are coming in, how the makeup of the team looks next year, that you can work around. For all these reasons, I'm going to give TJ a 35% chance of winning the starting job as of this moment. Now let's talk about Dematrius Davis. He is the fan favorite, and I feel like we're just going to have a mob if somehow he either leaves or if he doesn't get the starting job. But I do think that there are some good things to him that he has an opportunity to start, but I also think there are some things that are holding him back. The biggest pro for him is his athleticism, or at least perceived athleticism. All we have to go off of is a performance in A-Day and his high school tape. And really, that's not game time. That's not SEC level play game time. So you can't really equate that to how it's going to translate over into a college football performance. But you can see where it would possibly be an asset, especially as we already talked about with offensive line struggles the past couple of years, and you probably will have some of those carry over as we reestablish a new offensive line structure going forward. That could be a huge asset for Auburn to have someone that can create plays with his feet. You saw how well Bo was able to do that with the struggles that he had with his teammates on the offensive line. The biggest con for Dematrius Davis is really that something is just kind of perceived, really. He hasn't broke through yet. If he was good enough, and I don't mean that as he's not good enough, but if the coaches deemed him good enough, the best opportunity for this football team to succeed, he would have beaten out Bo Nix. He would have beaten out TJ Finley. He didn't even get to play in the bowl game. Now, granted, the situation didn't really call for it, but I do wonder why we're not seeing him. It just tells me that he hasn't done enough on the field, off the field yet to warrant beating out TJ or Bo this season. So I have to wonder, if he hasn't done it yet, will he be able to beat TJ or even Zach, who's coming in and we'll talk about in just a second. That's the biggest con for me, is why the unknown. Why hasn't he broke through yet? There's something that we don't know that the coaches know. For all those reasons, I still think he has a legitimate chance to be the starter, so I'm giving him 25% chance so far. Now let's talk about Holden Geriner. His biggest pro is that he has the coach's approval. Now, not to say that none of the other quarterbacks have the coach's approval, but when you look at Coach Harson, I've said this a lot on this channel throughout our first year with him. If you watch Coach Harson's press conferences, interviews, he doesn't do a lot of coach speak, but he doesn't exactly come out and tell you what exactly you're wanting to hear. But he's very easy to read between the lines and kind of listen to what he's saying. And when he talks about Holden, he lights up, and he talks about how excited he is having him here as part of this program. You know, that is a lot to be said right there. It means that you're going to have a guy that's really invested in you. And if he really is not seeing what he needs to out of the other quarterbacks, he may be willing to take a shot with you if he's that excited about bringing you into this class. Now, his con, and it's the big con for him, and it's probably the thing that keeps him from starting, is no experience at the college level. I mean, he's a freshman. He's probably going to redshirt next year, just being honest. But I just think that's probably the biggest thing that's going to keep him from getting the starting job. If you think about the situation with Bo, for instance, where he came in as a true freshman to start, his biggest competition was Joey Gatewood. And no offense to Joey, but we now have kind of seen that he wasn't starting material for Auburn. It's a much different situation for Holden, who he's playing behind three very capable quarterbacks, all with each their own assets they bring to the table that could be very successful for Auburn. So for that reason alone, I have to give him a measly 5% chance to get the starting job, but there's still a chance out there. We'll see what happens. Lastly, that brings us to the new guy, Zach Calzada from Texas A&M. His biggest pro is he is the most experienced SEC quarterback in the room currently at Auburn. Now, that's not by much when you go and look at comparing TJ Finley's time as LSU starter versus his time at Auburn, combining those, and then compare that looking to Zach Calzada's time at Texas A&M. Zach slightly gets the edge. He's also got a pretty good win against Alabama under his belt. TJ almost did that, at least put up a pretty decent game, enough to have Auburn in a position to win the game at least. But still, he slightly gets the edge just in terms of experience, being ready to compete from day one. So that would be his biggest pro. His biggest con would be his interceptions. If you look at his breakdown of his stats, for every 2 touchdowns he throws 1 interception. So think about that. It can be a little frustrating, but the difference is, though, at least he's throwing some more touchdowns, because we certainly could use a little bit more scoring from our offense. So while that is a con, it is something that can be worked through with Austin Davis coming in. And this doesn't just apply to Zach, it applies to all the quarterbacks. Each of these little nuances that probably are their cons that can be worked with Austin Davis, with Bryan Harson, and make them less of an issue for them and make this competition even more formidable. For all those reasons, though, right now, I'm still giving Zach a 35% chance to be the starter at Auburn in 2022. So in summary, here are the percentage chances that these guys start. For TJ, 35%. For Zach, 35%. Dematrius, 25%. And then Holden bringing up the rear with 5% chance. Again, as a reminder, we'll do an update probably to this a couple of times during the offseason, so stay tuned for that. But I want to know from you now in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on the quarterback race as it stands as of this moment? Let me know your percentage confidence of which quarterback's going to start and how the whole quarterback race breaks down for you. If you enjoyed this content, please help support it by smashing that like button. And if you're not, please do subscribe along with that notification bell so you never miss anything, whether it be an upload or a live stream. If you want to find ways to help support our content here, there's ways to do that in the description listed below. Some of those being a channel member here on YouTube or joining the Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. Both of those start at $1 a month. Thank you for tuning into the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks. War Eagle.